This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed. Hey y'all, welcome everybody to another episode of Benefits Buzz. We are well into our open enrollment series, and this week we're talking about Commuter, which I don't know a lot about, coming that I live in Fargo, North Dakota, but I know people out there take the bus, they take the subway, they take a train. What else do they do, Kelsey? What? Uberpool. There's lots of different ways, and by the time this episode airs, I am fingers crossed that the pandemic is behind us and people are out back into the office. As you can see, we're still rocking the home office here. But who knows? I think there's a lot of us that are excited, maybe not. We've gotten really used to working from home. But for those of us that like going to work, and for those that may be required to go into the work, we want to talk about commuter benefits. Kelsey, again, my co-host, welcome. What's your vibe? Are you excited to talk about commuter, or what's your take here?
Well, like you said, I live in far North Dakota, so I don't commute very often. And if I do, it's in my car with my toddler screaming in the back. So it might be pretty comparable to everybody else's commute, but I'm excited to learn more about commuter benefits from our experts.
Absolutely. Before I get into it, one of the most strangest commuter experiences. So I worked at Microsoft before I came to WEX, and I had someone come and present, and they talked about their commute to work. They literally rode a snowmobile from their farm into the Microsoft office. So really, you can get to the office however where you can imagine.
I don't feel like that's a qualified expense.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's probably not a qualified, but anyway, I thought it was a cool story. Well, let's talk about commuter. We have two wonderful guests that I'm super pumped to bring on the show. We've got Jamie Severson. She's a senior solution analyst at WEX Benefits, and we've got Kyle Kramer, who is also a senior solution analyst here with the benefits section of WEX. So, hey, both of you, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having us. We're super excited to be here.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping you'd jump in and say, hey, I rode my snowmobile to work one time too, Eric, but that's not the case, unfortunately.
So, well, it's also summer.
Not yet.
It is summer. It is. It's gorgeous out. Well, let's just cut to the chase here, right? We want to talk about what does a commuter benefit look like? And so I like to start with take it easy on our guests. I'll give you a softball question here. Let's just talk about what are the fundamentals, or what are the basics of a commuter's benefit plan.
So the benefit actually encompasses two different parts. So it's commuting to work and parking at work. So it's a pre-tax benefit, obviously. So there's a lot of things that go into that, but realistically, it allows you to, set aside a small portion of your salary before taxes to pay for these eligible expenses.
So you're already paying for parking and a way to get to work anyway. This is really just making it cheaper, right?
Yeah. Why, spend taxes on that money if you're already going to do it? Set it aside pre-tax.
Awesome. So who's eligible?
Right.
Yeah, good question. So being that it is related to work, as Jamie mentioned, commuting to work or parking at work, it is an employee-only benefit. So your spouse or your dependents, they're not eligible for it, unfortunately, like some of the other flexible benefit accounts you might be familiar with. So this one is just strictly for employees.
That's good to know. And I think when I think about, this kind of pre-tax saving stuff and who it's benefit for, my mind immediately goes to, well, what's all included here, Kyle? So what can I expense? I was joking about, the snowmobile. I'm guessing I can't expense my tank of gas, but what things are, what fall under that category of eligible?
Yeah, good question, Eric. So unfortunately, snowmobiles are not a thing yet. We'll keep looking down the pipeline for you, though. A few things that the transit in itself, just a few that come to mind are buses, trains, monorails, streetcars. You mentioned subway earlier, ferries, Amtrak. Kelsey mentioned Uberpool, some Lyft shares as well. So that's more the transit thing. And then Jamie, do you want to highlight some of the parking expenses?
Yeah, of course. So parking garage, parking meters, places where you can actually park and then take a transit or a ride are also eligible. There's a couple of unique features out there too, where there's apps that allow you to find a close parking spot, and those apps are eligible as well. So there's a couple of different ways to use a parking benefit.
I have a follow-up question based on a few things you said. So it sounds like for those of us in middle America where there's no subway in far North Dakota, I can't expense my own personal vehicle, even though that's how I commute to work. I can't expense gas. And then I'm also, because it's a work-related thing, I'm also guessing that you cannot use it on the weekend. Is that
You're
accurate?
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going into the city and you're going to the zoo, you can't park and go to the zoo with your family. It's only work-related expenses. And then, of course, things like gasoline, tolls, even airline tickets, those things are not eligible under either of the plans.
Awesome.
It's great to hear all that is included, though. It's actually a lot more than I kind of gave it credit for when you hear about all the different ways and what is eligible. So that's really kind of enlightening to understand that. I think it's really important, right, for our listeners to know, like, oh, I've been doing that and I haven't. How do I get myself a commuter plan here? Because that's really right. These are costs where, like I think you said at the beginning, Kelsey, these are costs we're already incurring at this point, right? For work, it would be great to have a benefit that could help alleviate some of that. You mentioned Uberpool, you mentioned kind of Lyft share. Can you talk to me about how those work as eligible expenses? Are there any caveats there? Or?
Yeah, so Uberpool is similar to what the IRS calls van pooling. Really what that is, it's a group of individuals that are utilizing the Uberpool to, again, go to and from work. Some of the caveats is there must be at least 6 adults, or it must be able to fit 6 adults, not including your driver. That's the biggest one. And then the second one is that 80% of the mileage when you're in that Uber has to be work-related again. So those are the 2 biggest items. So it's not that you could just get an Uber for yourself to work. Unfortunately, that wouldn't work. So you'd have to, again, use that van pooling is what they call it.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I mean, just distinguisher between those two, because I think, right, we all can imagine our experience getting an Uber and making sure that we're choosing the right one. So thank you for clarifying that. We kind of listed a bunch of questions here to try and stump you. So I'm kind of looking at my crib sheet here. And one of the things that popped up that I'm actually don't even know the answer to, so I'm excited about this. What about we talk about like funds and things that maybe you can carry over from month to month or year to year. Is that a real thing? Does that work? Like if you get reimbursed or can you be reimbursed for things that have happened in the past? Or can you give some details around that?
I can do that, Eric. Yes. So you have to be enrolled in the plan to be eligible for, any of those expenses. So going forward. But the good thing about this benefit is it's month to month. So you can enroll in it and then you can change that election at any time. So if you find a cheaper parking lot, you can decrease your election the next month. Or if you find a different way or a different means to work, you can always change that election by either going up and increasing it up to the annual maximum or the monthly maximum, or decreasing it to meet your needs.
I love that, because it makes me think about, I have a lot of friends that bike to work in the summer, and I imagine that might be popular in big cities too, where maybe you're taking the subway in the winter, but in the summer you want to take a bike to work. So it sounds like you can decrease your election at that time, still be on the plan, but not contribute as much money to it.
You're right. Yep, that's a prime example. Perfect.
Awesome. So how much can you contribute per month to Commuter? Because I often don't even think about the partner or the parking aspect of it. I often only think about, traveling to work, not necessarily the parking aspect, and parking can be really expensive. So how much can you actually contribute to Commuter benefits?
Yeah, so the pre-tax maximum for 2021 is $270 per person.
Awesome.
And that is for both transit and parking.
Perfect. So if I don't use that full 270, the remainder moves over to the next month and the next month until I use it. That's great.
Yep, you got it.
So now that we've got these funds, if we put these, stack these funds away, and thank you for clarifying on the contributions and the max and stuff. It's interesting. I love that you can kind of adjust them as you go. Yeah, seasonality is fantastic, especially around here. I love that. What about the spending of the funds, right? I know we probably have selfishly a way that we do them at WEX, but in general, like how would you spend these funds? Is it on a card? Is it reimbursed? Like, what are the ways that, obviously you want to make it super easy, right? So what's the best way to start spending these dollars we've got set aside for a commuter?
Yeah, definitely a couple of different ways to spend the funds. We want to make it easy for, everybody to access it in their own way. So you could either, like at WEX, swipe your commuter debit card, use the funds that way, or we have a lot of people too just keying in their debit card information into their transit authority account and using that form of payment as their reoccurring payment. So your payroll deposit's going into your account, and then it's just automatically going out through that transit authority and paying for the pass.
What about Apple Pay? Because I'm a big Apple Pay user. I hate carrying my wallet anywhere. It's pain to me, especially with a toddler, like I mentioned. So can I use Apple Pay?
You can. Yep. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay. You can add your card to all of those features.
All the pays.
Yeah.
But except for cash?
Right. Yep.
Okay. I never have cash. Ask my friends.
Yeah, I
I
was
never
like, who
have
carries
cash in my wallet.
cash?
I know. I'm like, hey, do you got this? No, I don't usually have my wallet with me, let alone cash. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay, cool. Love that. So maybe let's make it tangible for the listeners. Just walk me through a scenario, right? Probably not a Fargo scenario. Maybe like a scenario where someone might interact with a carpool or maybe even a parking benefit usage, just so we can get a vibe of what this might look like.
I would say an example would be right off the bat, taking a bus for an example. You're hopping on the bus, you're heading to work. When you get on that bus, you're going to need to make a form of payment to be able to get on the bus wherever your destination is. So that's just a quick example. You're hopping on the bus, you're able to swipe your debit card right there, if they have the debit card reader, of course. and essentially that's as simple as it is. The IRS doesn't need any receipts. So as long as they're offering or accepting that debit card, for example, hopping on the bus, it's really as smooth as that.
Oh, that's music to my ears.
No
Nothing
receipts.
worse than keeping receipts. Am I right? Oh,
Yeah.
it's brutal. I love that. That is great news for everyone. And then like the parking scenario, like I used to have to work in a park, even the crazy busy downtown Fargo. I would have to park in a parking lot that would have costs associated to it. Is that just a perfect example where I would then pay for that again with the card, not have to keep a receipt, and then boom, bada bing? Or what's the scenario in that situation?
Yeah, with parking, it's the same way. Use your debit card to pay for that. But we are aware that not all parking garages or parking lots are going to have that option. Sometimes there's just a teller in a booth and they write out a receipt and they give it over to you. So there is an option to file reimbursements, that way as well. We have that flexibility. But again, I think that most people are using that debit card feature.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like a really simple plan to use, especially if you're used to commuting, which I know we're a little novice at, Eric and I. But if you're used to commuting, paying for transit, paying for parking, it sounds pretty simple. And obviously the flexibility to increase or decrease your contribution limit. No receipts. I can't remember the last time I kept a receipt. So that's awesome. I appreciate you two so much and all of the expertise that you brought to this episode.
Yeah, and I also just love the thought of, there's something about commuter, just like, I don't know, I'm a little apprehensive, and just having this kind of the idea of taking transit and having that peace of mind. And, some people who are maybe even like typically used to driving in and could look at this as a potential alternative if that benefit's available. Seems like almost a no-brainer to do as we kind of get kicked into there. So, and I think the hope is I love that you guys talk through all the different situations and scenarios, because it's confusing, right? Like, you want to know if what you do qualifies, and if it does, how easy is it, to get those dollars back and to set those funds. So anything else you'd love to share with us? I'm sure you've heard a gazillion questions about Commuter. Did we miss any of them?
No, but I think you bring up a good point. If you have commuter expenses and you're not using a pre-tax benefit, I really encourage you to look into the plan, because obviously you're going to get those funds pre-tax. So if you've got that offer to you, use it.
Absolutely. Save your hard-earned money for vacations.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, where are we going, Kyle? What are we hitting up next here, right?
Somewhere where we can drive a snowmobile there.
There you go. There you go. I dig it. Alaska. All right. Well, Alaskan cruise. Kyle and I, we're hitting it up. Well, thanks so much, both of you, for coming on the podcast. This has been super informational. I was bummed we couldn't stump you, but I appreciate you hitting all these questions and making Commuter real plain and simple for all of our listeners. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.